Once upon a time, a long time ago, our 41st president was born in Milton, Massachusetts. Bush grew up to be a strapping young man. He studied economics at Yale and graduated in 1948. He enlisted in the Navy when he turned 18. He became the youngest aviator when he joined.
When he returned from the Navy, he got married to Barbara Bush. With that family, they had 4 sons and 2 daughters: George W., John, known as Jeb, Neil, Marvin, Dorothy, and Robin. They all moved to Texas, where he got a job at an oil company. After a few years, he became the president of the business, and soon he became
He began his political career as a House of Representatives member in 1967. In 1973, he became the chairman of the National Republic Community. Through these jobs, he decided to keep going in politics. So in 1981, he became the vice president under Ronald Reagan, and he was vice president for 2 terms until, in 1989, he became the 41st president of the United States.
Before Bush's presidency, taxes were separate between the rich and everyone else. Before his speech in 1988, called "Read My Lips, No More Taxes," he told the people that he wasn't going to raise taxes. This created a big issue because most of the Congress were Democrats and he was a Republican. So he had to work with people who wanted to raise taxes for the rich. He came to the conclusion that in 1990, called the Budget Compromisers, this rose tax budget on items, and it raised the overall budget of government.
The main problem was it upset many people that he said he would lower the taxes in his campaign. This compromise may have cost him his re-election 2 years later. Also, in 1991, the Bushes gave a tax return. Bush's wife Barbara wrote a book about the White House through a dog's perspective. She made $889,000 and donated $818,000, which is 61% of their income, to 49 different charities. Later on, 2 feminist newspaper story authors named Bartlett and Steele figured out about the donation.
Later, when people found out about the donation, many misled and they depicted Bush and his family as very greedy.
Also, in his first year of presidency, the Berlin Wall came down. The wall was officially taken down November 9th of 1989. Many people believe that the reason the wall was taken down was because of the people themselves. But the main reason the wall was taken down was because Bush was able to win the trust of the Soviet Union leader and the West Germany's chancellor.
Also, in 1989, Bush met with Gorbachev to discuss the changes in Eastern Europe. In a speech called God-Given Rights, he told the people that the collapsing of the wall didn't take place in capital cities, but in the hearts of people who stayed long for their God-given rights. In his speech, he also praised the other country leaders for their cooperation and seeing the moment. In the end of his presidency, Bush told his friends that the takedown of the wall was the highlight of his presidency. During the time, the Soviet Union was going through a bad economic decline, and they were splitting into 15 separate countries. Not only was it the fall of the Berlin Wall, it was also the fall of the Soviet Union. During the time, the Soviet Union was going through a bad economic decline, and they were splitting into 15 separate countries. During their meeting, Bush encouraged Gorbachev's reform efforts. After that, they began to work together as reliable partners. This led to Gorbachev introducing his second-level policy of reforms. The first level, freedom of speech; the second, economic reform and building. And the Soviet people used their new freedom to express their trapped anger and to unleash it all at once, mainly by criticizing Gorbachev for his failure to meet the needs of states in improving their economy.
The Americans with Disabilities Act, or AWDA, is a federal law designed to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities in programs and activities. They received federal financial assistance. The law was officially passed on July 26th in 1990. It addresses the needs of the people with disabilities and illnesses. No buildings had to have handicap-accessible areas and facilities. It gave people with disabilities an equal chance as average people. This was Bush's way of making sure discrimination of people with disabilities would be illegal.
The U.S. Department of Defense estimated that this war cost about $61 billion. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and other Gulf states covered 36, part of $61 billion. Germany and Japan covered the $16 billion, and U.S. covered most of the rest. More than 100,000 Iraqi soldiers were killed. The First Persian Gulf War started August 2nd and ended February 28th. The first attack was called Operation Desert Storm, led by the U.S., and after 48 days of this attack, Bush called ceasefire.
By that time, there were already 670,000 troops in 28 separate countries, and Iraq leaders ordered an attack aiming at the large oil reserve, canceling a large debt Iraq owed to Kuwait, and expanding Iraq's power in most regions. During the fight, the U.S. tried to help Kuwait get their government back and help other countries in the Middle East. And if families lost their homes and family members during this tragic war that was 48 days.